Today's lesson is chapter 5, section 3. We're going to be talking about Athenian democracy, and then we'll talk about how Athens grew in power, and then they faced one of the other Greek city-states, Sparta, in a war of the Greek city-states. The two most prominent Greek city-states battled it off in the Peloponnesian War. We're going to talk about a key figure, a leader of Athens named Pericles here first. Pericles had many plans for Athens in expanding their democracy. He was well known as a skillful politician, an inspiring speaker, and a very well-respected military general. He led Athens for about 30 years, from 461 all the way to 429 BC. This time period became known as the Age of Pericles because he was such a well-revered leader. He had three major goals for Athens. One was to strengthen the Athenian democracy. Two was to both hold on to and then expand the empire. And then number three was to glorify Athens through art and architecture. Capital letter B is going to talk about the essence of creating a stronger democracy. What are some of the plans that he implemented to do that? First of all, he increased the number of officials who were paid in the form of salaries. Prior to this point, people in Athens would volunteer for government work, and the accountability level was just a little bit more increased when you're paying someone because you can hold them accountable for the responsibilities. If someone's volunteering, that's great because you don't have to pay them, but as far as holding them accountable, it's a little bit more difficult. Also, what was going on in Athens under Pericles was direct democracy. This is a form of government in which citizens rule directly through voting and not through representatives. This is one of the major differences between the earliest form of democracy and what we practice here today in the United States. In our country today, we don't vote on every last issue. The Athenians would have. They would have, if there was a possibility of war, they would have come together to make a vote on that. If they had a famine or a drought, they would vote on what they wanted to do to solve the problem. In our world, in the United States, we vote for representatives. We elect people who then make those decisions for us. We want to vote for the people who we feel have our state, our city, our country's best interest at hand. Athens became, during this time when they're using direct democracy, one of the most democratic governments in the history of the world because they literally voted on every major issue. Capital C talks about the empire created by Pericles. One of his major goals was to strengthen the Athenian navy. This is definitely the way to do that because if you want to expand in the empire, you're going to have to get to different islands and different regions by using ships. And overall, if you can increase the navy, increase the military might, you're going to be in really good shape there. The next point is capital D, to glorify Athens. Pericles wanted to beautify Athens with art and architecture. Now, one of the problems with this is that he took some of the money from an alliance league fund called the Delian League, and that angered some of the other Greek city-states, including Sparta, and was one of the motivating factors for the Peloponnesian War. Roman numeral 2 is going to talk about some of that glorious art and architecture that was going on in Greece during this time. The major piece of work was the Parthenon. I'm going to show some pictures here at the end. It was a 23,000 square foot temple built to honor the Greek goddess of wisdom, Athena. It was built by the sculptor Phidias, and the Greeks attempted to create figures that were usually graceful, strong, and perfectly formed. Their goal was to portray ideal beauty, not necessarily realism. This falls under the classical values in Greece of classical art. This type of art valued harmony, order, balance, proportion. If you have all of those elements, you're looking for ideal beauty. Roman numeral 3 is going to talk about drama and history. The Greeks basically invented drama, and they were the first to build true theaters in the West. Tragedy and comedy are types of drama. Tragedy is serious drama. It involves common themes such as love, hate, war, and betrayal. A feature of this would be a tragic hero. Three notable dramatists are Sophocles, Sophocles, and Euripides. Number 2 is comedy. Comedy would be humorous. It was something meant to make people laugh. It would have many funny scenes. Oftentimes, the comedies made fun of politics, which is very similar to what we have here in the United States today. In the modern world, if you turn on television on Saturday night, you'll find Saturday Night Live. And one of the the top covered scenes are making fun of political figures. And so there's very much a tie in there from the past to the present. History, the Greeks were some of the first true historians, which is great for our class because we're learning about history and where some of this information comes from. Herodotus is known as the father of history. He's a Greek, he's from Athens, and he was the pioneer in recording and reporting events. In fact, his book on the Persian Wars is considered to be the first true work of history. Another Greek historian was Thucydides. Thucydides was known as the greatest historian of the classical age. He came after Herodotus. He actually started to think about the idea or the concept that events recur over time. And sometimes we say, yeah, history has a lot of events that seem to be recurring or at least close to a similar event that happened in the past. Roman numeral 4, we'll take a look at how Athens and Sparta went to war. War broke out between Athens and Sparta in 431 BC. The major reason why is because Athens had been taking money from the Delian League. They've been growing much stronger. They've been expanding their empire. And so Sparta grows a little bit jealous. Some of the other city-states sort of join in on this, and they declare war. So to define the Peloponnesian War, it's very simple. It's a war between the major city-states of Sparta and Athens. Athens had the stronger navy. Sparta had the stronger army. An advantage for Sparta, though, was that Sparta's location inland meant it was not so susceptible to an attack by way of the sea. Pericles was still the leader of Athens, and he tried to avoid land battles. He was trying to draw the Spartans out to sea. Sparta eventually grew tired of this and simply attacked Athens by land, forcing the Athenians back behind city walls. This effectively created food shortage for the people in Athens and fresh water supplies. Eventually, when that type of thing happens, people get sick, disease starts to spread. A great plague hit the city, and it killed about 1/3 of the population, including the key leader Pericles. In the end, they would sign in 421 a peace agreement, but that wouldn't last very long. Capital C, Sparta gains victory. The peace didn't last long, only about 5 to 6 years. In 415, Athens sent a naval fleet of 20,000 soldiers to the island of Sicily. Their goal there was to destroy Syracuse, which was one of Sparta's wealthiest allies. The Spartans, in response to this, thoroughly defeated the Athenians in 414 BC, and they continued to fight back and forth for another 10 years until Athens finally surrendered in 404 BC. Roman numeral 5 talks about philosophers. The key philosophers, they are known as lovers of wisdom. They were determined to create truth based on the following assumptions. Number 1, they believe the universe is put together in an orderly way, and it is subject to absolute and unchanging laws. And the philosophers taught that people could understand these laws through logic and reason. A subgroup of the philosophers were the Sophists. The Sophists, they questioned people's general beliefs about justice and other traditional values. Protagoras was a noteworthy Sophist. He questioned the need for Greek gods. He questioned the polytheistic religion in general. After that, there's 3 famous philosophers: Socrates, Plato, and then also Aristotle, who's down here at the bottom. Now, Socrates is sort of the initial philosopher. He was a teacher, a tutor, and he used the Socratic method of questioning students to try and get them to come up with their own conclusions. Plato was one of his students. Plato wrote down many of the lectures of Socrates. His most famous work is his book, The Republic. The Republic depicted a perfect society in Plato's eyes. Finally, a student of Plato's was Aristotle. Aristotle questioned many things. He was similar to a sophist, but he did invent the scientific methodology, which is a way of arguing based on the rules of logic. Also, in section 4, you'll learn about Alexander the Great, and Alexander's tutor was Aristotle. Thank you.